All right, everyone, welcome to Sharp Strategy Sweet Success. This is Tiffany Swedensky, and I am with Kyle Habenstreit. Did I
Heven
say that
Street.
right?
Yeah,
Huh?
Heven Street. Uh,
Habenstreit?
yeah,
I took this to Google Translate before, actually, and I should have confirmed when we were talking before, but I thought I had it.
all good. Yeah, it's nobody gets it right, but yes, it's like Heben Street.
Heben Street. So
Yeah.
we're here with Kyle Heben Street from Practice Made Perfect, and we're going to talk to him today about marketing, digital marketing, and his company and what he's got going on. Kyle and are just meeting, so I think this is actually the first time we've ever talked. So I'm going to take it to him and have Kyle tell us about Kyle and Practice Made Perfect.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Tiffany. Appreciate it. Um, so yeah, PMP, short for Practice Made Perfect, has been around since the early 2000s. It was actually started as like a lead referral network for John Morgan. Around 2007, it evolved into an advertising agency for personal injury law firms with sort of the value prop of learn the sort of Morgan and Morgan model for marketing your firm. And thereafter, it grew across country and even into Canada. And then Morgan and Morgan started also growing and started moving into some markets where our clients were doing business, and that created a competitive conflict of interest at a time when his partner was also looking to move on. And so, I actually had the privilege of acquiring PMP from John and his partner in early 2022. In PMP, I saw a really great business with really impressive clients. And in sort of legal marketing and personal injury law marketing, I saw an opportunity to kind of improve upon what we were doing and modernize the business for sort of the future of marketing in personal injury law. And I've been investing a lot kind of in building out our digital capabilities, both on our website and SEO side, as well as our digital advertising capabilities and reporting and analytics, just to make sure we sort of keep pace with where the market heads and stay ahead of where we need to be with our clients. For an overview on the business, PMP provides advertising services for law firms, which can include cross-channel branding and performance media. So we put together annual marketing plans for our clients and then execute everything from the creative services, campaign management and optimization, reporting, et cetera, all with the intention of driving cases to our clients. And we also build and maintain websites, as I suggested, which can be as simple as like hosting monthly and up to kind of content marketing and technical SEO. So we try to be, and we continue to push ourselves to be more or less like an outsourced marketing department for law firms. So we can either be that marketing department for you, or we augment your internal resources and help them succeed as much as possible. In terms of my background, I worked in the film and entertainment industry earlier in my career at a company called Skydance Media. I went to business school, got an MBA, and then worked in Deloitte's consulting practice, where I advised Fortune 500 companies on their advertising strategies through sort of M&A project work as well as growth strategy project work, and partnered with a private equity firm in Chicago to acquire a great small to medium sized business that I could step into and hopefully grow over the long term. And so that's what brought me to PMP in West Palm Beach. So yeah, that's sort of the the story to hear.
Well, awesome. Thanks for so much for that. So you mentioned the future of marketing. So what would you say? I don't know if it's like one, two, or three things, but what is like the future of marketing for law firms?
Yeah. So, I mean, for us, we really started as like a TV buying agency because that was like the most effective tool. Where we've moved from there is trying to be more of a full service marketing solutions company. So instead of saying like, pay us to place your buy for you in an efficient way, it's like we want to advise like what percentage of your revenue should you be allocating to marketing based on your growth objectives and your overall business objectives. And then within that budget, where should those dollars flow to? From paid media to earned media like PR to owned media for like content generation on your website or on your social media platforms. And then we help sort of effectuate that investment accordingly. So we do that because it used to be if you just put a lot of money on broadcast TV and daytime television, there was a lot of low hanging fruit. Obviously, as digital platforms have emerged, there's more opportunities and more fragmentation of where those dollars should go. We don't really want to build our business on one sort of capability. We want to build our business on the ability to like apply those investment dollars effectively. And while it's probably vogue to say like the future is like digital, I think about it less in sort of channel terms and more in terms of like overall business strategy. And by that, I mean like you've got a lot of large national and like regional firms that are going into markets and they've got meaningful budgets to market and they're playing a certain game. And what we want to do is help our clients who are still sizable, but not, they're more local firms. How do they compete against those regional players and differentiate from other local players? And a big part of that actually comes down to sort of like local community engagement and brand definition. As we think about sort of in the next year or two, like where we really focus our service offerings and where we're pushing our clients beyond like allocation on paid advertising is like, how can we help you set up a cadence of doing like legal clinics and like going with branded collateral to fun runs and other sort of like local events, and help you sort of prepare against these like changing market dynamics. Um, Now, to talk about kind of like the slick trends of digital, I think that what you're saying is like we've got greater ability to sort of like take the digital exhaust from a campaign, whether it's like paid search or Facebook, what's converting into a case? How do we identify the campaigns that are not just converting into leads, but cases? And how do we feed that information back to the front end strategy? So you're seeing more kind of like robotic process automation technology for campaign management on digital platforms and more enhanced sort of like attribution. So you can actually see how people navigate your website and turn into a lead and potentially a client. And so a lot of it is around kind of like that advanced analytics that informs an upfront strategy on your digital platforms. And then staying ahead of any emerging platforms, whether that's like ChatGPT or Perplexity or DeepSeek, like changing search behaviors from Google, which was the monolith and still is, to other ways that people might navigate to find a law firm. So reading that back, I guess, is probably like three buckets. It's like, in-person human interaction style guerrilla marketing to differentiate yourself, like advanced analytics on digital platforms to inform your marketing, and then, staying abreast of emerging AI-driven platforms that change the way people search for and navigate online to find business services.
Yeah. So community marketing has been making a lot of lists, and it made my list in my e-newsletter here recently too. Because in some of the firms that I've worked with, where we've done kind of simple things like sponsoring neighborhood barbecues or giving away backpacks with school supplies, just recently finished up giving out like Uber codes for New Year's Eve, like $20 voucher codes. And none of these things had like an impact, I guess, on the ROI immediately. But then you see like the numbers downstream and increased referrals and increased brand recognition. And then what I try to help people get their head around is like, it's not like digital and community marketing. These things aren't separate because you use digital marketing to promote your community marketing. So it's all interlinking. And, doing the community marketing is like the content that you make. And then digital platforms are the way you distribute that message. That makes sense. That align with what you see.
Yeah, yeah, totally. I would say just two thoughts. One, to that point, it's like there's using digital to sort of like highlight the event that you're about to do so that people go there. And then when you're at the event, you want to take, pictures and videos to put on your organic social platforms to sort of like create that robust and authentic uh, view of who the firm is. You also like get sponsorships that have implications for backlinking on SEO. there's also, depending on the circumstances, opportunities for review generation. Like there's no rule that every review needs to be written by a client of the firm. Any review on Google for any business is about somebody who had a positive or negative experience with that business. And so if you have a mechanism to get positive Google, hopefully positive Google reviews, that also helps your Google business profile, which has implications on LSA and SEO. So I say like people think about the digital environment as kind of like mutually exclusive from like traditional, but it's just a representation of like the real world. And all we're doing as marketers is trying to like influence people's behavior in the real world using the available tools, whether they come to us in like bits and bytes, or over the airwaves or on a billboard or whatever the case may be. So it ultimately all kind of like integrates. One other kind of like interesting thing I would say about like the community engagement stuff that you described, which I wholeheartedly support, is like there's an interesting Harvard Business School case study, someone who studied the impact of independent book retailers when large firms like Amazon or Barnes and Noble or Borders came into their market. Like it's not sort of surprising for anybody who lived over the past like 10 or 15 years that like independent bookstores suffered as a result of these large companies coming in. And some of them did not, some of them thrived. And this Harvard professor evaluated those. And there were a couple different tactics, some specific to like book publishing, but one big one was building a sense of community and tie to their local community with events and things of that nature that helped them sort of like sustain and thrive. So we think about an environment in law and legal marketing. I do see those parallels where it's like you've got a large firm coming in. How do you differentiate? And a big part of how you differentiate is engaging with the community. And I'm glad you pointed out it's not about like lead generation so much as it is feeding kind of like other marketing channels and also developing that referral relationship.
A few years ago, it felt like marketing was just all about funnels, like building the landing page and the email follow up. Do you still like use funnels, and like how do you use them? Do you call them by something else? Like what's your take on that?
Yeah, we're kind of like at a point where we're transitioning to a little bit more of like there's a McKinsey and Company, the consulting group. Like there's kind of like a marketing loop that feeds more into like advocacy and how you sort of feed the funnel back on itself and sort of like this continuous like loop of self-improvement. I think the fundamentals are the same, and I think that like for what we do, like you need to be aware of the sort of different tactics of the funnel. We think about brand awareness, and then we think about like conversion. Basically, we do touch, as a byproduct of what we do, kind of like advocacy, but we distinguish between like brand and conversion. To talk about how to use these channels, because if you're using, say, like YouTube or connected TV, though it's a digital platform, like that doesn't necessarily mean that tactic is used to drive leads and have similar looking results as you might get on like pay per click. It's actually a brand tactic that is online. And so we use it sort of like in that sense. We think about, and we have this on our website. We did a market report on the client journey, particularly in personal injury. So what are the behaviors a person has following an accident, but prior to hiring an attorney? And we broke that down in multiple phases, because in each of those phases, they're seeking information and making decisions differently. And they go to different resources, whether that's like people in their network, like friends or doctors, or online or whatever, uh, to influence those decisions as they're navigating towards the end decision to hire an attorney. So our job as marketers is like, let's highlight those common behaviors that people take. And if there's nodes kind of in that journey where they have a higher propensity to sort of like make a decision towards hiring an attorney and hiring our attorney, we want to invest our time and energy to influence those behaviors in that timeline. And so it's not like a proprietary funnel that we use. And it kind of maps with like the traditional sort of like brand awareness, consideration, conversion, advocacy type of funnel. But it is slightly more customized and focused on like the path of a personal injury claimant seeking legal representation.
Yeah. There are ultimately like two parts to this, it sounds like. There's the like high intent, I'm about to hire an attorney type journey, and that journey is pretty short. But then you have like the journey that's like a little bit like I guess lower intent, although that's not the word for it. But this is like the space where we're doing like a lot of brand building and list nurturing. And I mean that's a great tactic for any businesses if they're thinking about like, well, how do I build a brand? How do I nurture a brand? Really, you just need to start with like former clients, leads within your funnel, and it doesn't always have to be about return on investment, because there's true value in just showing up everywhere and letting some marketing just be marketing and support, all the other things that we're doing to help us ultimately generate more referrals and clients. It's really not like a linear path that's easy to measure anymore, if it ever was. So yeah, that's a really good point.
No, I totally agree. And I mean, there's in this study that I just referenced, like I forget the exact numbers, but it's close to 50-50. Like 50% of people like would not contact an attorney or would not think to contact an attorney following an accident. And so there's just basic like how do we get that to be, how do we get that number to be smaller than 50%? Like, how do we inform people that they have this recourse of legal representation that they like should consider and actually pursue? So there's like even like further sort of like up funnel in terms of like information sharing can even be unbranded, although that's not like something I would advise on like a limited budget.
Yeah.
But there are these other tactics to just purely inform people of the options that they have because oftentimes they haven't thought about the circumstance of hiring an attorney before they're actually in it.
That's wild. I didn't know that. 50% of people who've been in an accident don't know to call an accident attorney.
Either they would not be sure or they decidedly would not choose to hire an attorney. That's like the statistic. We surveyed over 1,000 people across the country and asked a variety of questions, and that was one huge insight. It was like we're sort of getting in knife fights over this like 50% that would. What if we expanded the pie and talked to people who wouldn't? Like, how do we find that messaging? And so that's something we're trying to figure out.
And so this aligns with, just conversations I have with random people who, friends, family, coworkers who aren't necessarily in legal marketing. And I've asked them, like, what for them would be like, if they've had a legal issue, what was the barrier for them to contact an attorney? And a lot of them just said that they were scared. Like, they weren't sure and they were scared. And, the idea of calling a law firm is like scary to most people. And so there's a lot to overcome there. Like, one, do they know to call? And two, like, how do they feel about calling? Like, have you made them comfortable with the idea, the process, and made it like low risk, high reward? And so, I mean, that's wild. I wouldn't have guessed it would have been 50%.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's interesting, and this feeds into like creative strategy and how we would like to kind of advise our clients who are willing moving forward. It's like there is this sort of trope of like a guy in a suit who's tough and I'm going to be like the fighter for you, which has an effective narrative for a certain audience, but it isn't as sort of like accessible for a lot of people and is intimidating for a lot of people. And I think that there's a sort of softer version of a brand, and also communicating like what the person can expect from the process. It's not just like the person that they're scared of. Like, uh, you know, routinely people don't know how much it costs, and that it's like contingency fee for personal injury at least. And so like we have to kind of hit on that, but like talk through what's the process I'm about to experience undergoing this and demystify it because it can be intimidating embarking on this thing and you don't know what you're doing as a client and this is all foreign to you. How do you sort of like bring the reality of the experience they'll have as a client to you to the front end, so they feel more comfortable taking that initial leap to contact? And I think that's an important thing that I see in some creative, and we're certainly pushing our clients to do a bit more.
Yeah. Actually, my team is recently writing an article about like what happens in the free consultation process because doing some keyword research, we found that people had a lot of questions like what is a free consultation? What happens? What do I need? Are there hidden fees? And all these questions that I don't know why, but in my career in legal marketing, I never thought anyone was asking. And so now we're writing
Mhm.
content to try to answer those questions. So there's a lot of uncertainty when somebody is
Mhm.
searching for an attorney. They don't know what they need. A lot of times they don't know what they're looking for. And so, bringing that clarity to them through content of all kinds, it's really important. I had a question. I'm going to go ahead and ask it before I forget about it. But what are your favorite like tools that you're using to market for law firms right now? On the law firm side or
Like
just like through your agency, I guess.
software tools.
Software tools, or I was thinking like Lead Docket. I'm working with Lead Docket a lot. That's one of my favorite tools.
Yeah, we actually, so we don't, I mean, we input into our clients like case management systems. We get monthly extracts to match cases back to our campaigns so we can get closer to a true cost per case analysis and make sure that we're efficiently managing campaigns. But aside from integrations that we put in place on our websites and contact forms, we don't touch them. So like we don't particularly care. We're agnostic in terms of case management software. Smart Advocate and Filevine are ones that kind of like come to the top in terms of positive feedback. I hear a lot of like not positive feedback about case management systems. In terms of like marketing tools, like we leverage CallRail, we leverage for marketing analytics. We leverage TapClicks as our dashboard for agencies that visualizes all of our campaigns, and we have it set up so even like the traditional media, which doesn't have sort of like native like reporting capabilities, our clients who have like the full suite of services with us can see like what was the sort of reach and frequency and day parts and stuff like that for TV and like their billboard impressions and stuff like that down to cost per lead on paid search and SEO ranking and stuff like that. So we try to have like one view because, and again, kind of like following that funnel approach of like these are the metrics we care about up here, which are different than the metrics that we care about down here, and try to tell that sort of like story. And we like tap clicks. We're exploring a new kind of like AI, well, robotic process automation tool for our digital media buying. A lot of what we do is like leverage, some element of like Google AI, but there's still a lot of like manual updates that we do for our campaigns to gain that competitive edge. And a lot of that is just like rote, monotonous tasks. And so we're looking for something that can help us at scale and, regardless of time of day, and adhering to true hygiene and not subject to sort of human error. How do we manage those campaigns based on the strategies that we believe are working? So we're looking at this tool called Fluency, which is kind of interesting. um, so there, there's a handful of tools that like we look at and use. Um, and those are some of the ones that come to mind.
And as far as like what when you're working with your clients, like what are some things that you wish lawyers knew about marketing and like what Practice Made Perfect does?
Yeah. Um, I I'm a former management consultant, so I always like kind of take a little bit of like a 30,000 foot view on these things in like a holistic business context. But like I think that that's important. Otherwise, you might be misguided. I think it's like, what do you want out of your law firm now and 5 to 10 years from now? Do you want to be a market leader? Do you want a good lifestyle business? Like these types of things, like what do you want to be in your relationship to work? And then you should build your marketing strategy around that, and either sort of helping you build and being really disciplined and focused over a long period to help you build, or find yourself that equilibrium of marketing investment that gets you sort of, frankly, the margins and cash flow that you're looking for, and kind of like the ease of operation of running a law firm that you're running for to like let it run. And then like the marketing strategy and tactics that we put in place feed into that, and that allows us to do a good job for you if like because we want what we're doing to achieve like your personal objectives. So I think being clear on like what you want out of marketing and that might seem obvious, but a lot of folks, it's like there's an itch. It's like lead gen. That's like why lead gen shops exist. And it's like, I want leads now, and how can I game this and do that? And certainly there's like strategy and ways of monitoring kind of like how you can get more out of your dollar that we do. But like it all snaps back to sort of like an atomic reality of like, what do you want out of your business? And then catering your strategy and the tools you use to that. So I think be clear on that. And then also kind of like stick with it, like any business other than law firms. It's like you have to have a sort of disciplined approach to executing against your strategy. Doesn't mean you have to be blind to like changes in reality, but you like tweak. But have that kind of like long-term view before you jump into it. Otherwise, I fear that law firms have and would kind of get burned and spend good money in bad ways and be disappointed with the outcomes.
And I think what's important is that they commit enough. Because you don't just want to send like one postcard, you don't just want to send one e-newsletter and measure the results. And if the results are zero, stop doing it. That's what I see a lot of business owners do. And it's like, no, you have to keep at it. There's a cumulative score that is kept. Your email newsletter will get better over time. Your postcard will get results down the road. Your digital ad campaign. A lot of times these campaigns don't even, if, most digital ads go into a learning phase and the results don't even mature for, 3 months, 6 months sometimes.
Mhm.
So you really do like commit and like actually commit because it's so hard to do.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
So what's your plan now? Like, what are you working on that's getting you excited, or what are you promoting? Just tell me a little bit about what you got going on right now.
Yeah, a couple things. I mean, like from a marketing standpoint, we are really focused on thought leadership. Before you and I hopped on, we were talking about like conferences. Like we're doing like research projects and developing like white papers on topics that we think are actually compelling. They touch marketing, of course, but they're really about things that we find our clients like dealing with as law firm owners. And so this first one's about the nature of competition because it's a business concept that like everyone has an instinctual relationship to, but like that those instincts aren't always useful. And so we've done a lot of work to kind of like take academic principles of how to think about competition and apply them to the legal space. Another is like succession planning. We see a lot of the generational shift, particularly baby boomers, like a large generation transitioning to retirement, and either family members taking over leadership of the law firm or finding out who sort of the next generation of managing partners or leaders is. That's a complex thing in any business, and particularly in law firms, which oftentimes are family businesses, also has marketing implications. So excited about a lot of this research that it's not just me, it's like our whole team is doing. We've got a couple of different pieces coming down the pike to just like help us understand the world in which we navigate a little bit better. So I'm excited about that. You and I talked a little bit about the community engagement stuff. Like we're rolling that out at scale. Like we've talked a lot about in the past, but how do we productize like a service offering that we can effectively execute that's actually useful to a law firm? So that's going to be coming in the next quarter or two. So super excited about that, as well as like organic content generation, which is another one that agencies have traditionally, I think, had an operational challenge effectuating like outside of their local geography. But I think we've got a really good plan there that is going to help our clients. Outside of that, like long term, I'm actively looking to add intake as a service into our suite of services and either building or potentially acquiring a legal intake company that we could, um, integrate into our core platform at PMP. We view our kind of like long term view as helping law firms get more clients and help more people and grow their firms. And we kind of view like our managed service offering, the world in which we, have a right to play is like from case origination to handing over to pre-litigation services. And so we find legal intake is an area that could be really interesting for us to tie into our marketing campaigns, and we could more effectively like offer the outsourced service of marketing and business development for law firms. I find that like there's a lot of like good advice out there, but law firms have a tough time implementing for a variety of reasons. And so instead of like tell a managing partner what to do, I'd rather us as a company like do the doing for them. And so that's what we're building. But those are some things that get me excited about 2025.
And intake is so tough for law firms. And I mean, there could be so many possible reasons for that. But yeah, there are so many people out there who just need help because answering the phones, tracking your leads, it's much more than a receptionist position.
Mhm.
And I feel like a lot of law firms need to get out of the mindset of like, oh, I just need somebody to answer the phone and take notes. So that's fantastic.
Yeah.
So I didn't have any extra questions for you. Was there anything that you kind of hope to go over in the podcast that maybe I could see the question about?
No, no, I thought this was a good conversation. You had some good questions. It's good talking to kind of like-minded and plugged in people like in our space. And yeah, I've enjoyed it. So nothing more on my end.
All right. Well, I had to ask.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being with us. Where do you want people to find you at?
Yeah, they can email me directly. I'm always open to having conversations. My email address is Kyle at pmpmg.com. So that's like PMP Marketing Group. Or you can go to our website to learn more, which is pmpmg.com.
Awesome. Well, thanks again so much, and we'll look forward to talking to you again soon.
All right, awesome. Thanks, Tiffany.